What's up, everybody? Shimmy Sticks 85 here, and today I'm going to review the Warlock from Last Epoch 1.0. Now, is this chick a master of darkness, or does she fall flat on her face? Grab your witch hats, brooms, and wands, and let's go find out. The list of things we're going to go over in this video starts with how does this class feel to level, then the pros and cons of the Warlock in Last Epoch, what I believe to be the best abilities for the Warlock, how this class performs in in-game content, and most importantly, is it fun to play? Let's get going. Alright, before being able to select your mastery in Last Epoch, you're asked to choose between 5 different classes, each boasting 3 powerful masteries to go along with it. In order to play the Warlock, we're going to start out with the Acolyte. Now I know that might be a little confusing, but you'll only be your base class for a couple hours at most. Then once you progress enough in the story, you'll be able to choose your mastery after that. So, Last Epoch describes the Acolyte as a rebellious scion who disobeyed her masters and sought out forbidden magic. That's really obvious when you start looking into her skills. Summon Skeleton, you can summon minions to attack for you, same as golems to pull aggro off from the enemies. You have something like Bone Curse, which is an area damage over time spell. Basically drop it into a mob of enemies and just watch their health slowly tick away. And also the Infernal Shade, which basically lights one enemy on fire and then it spreads out around you. So she is a master, obviously, of all these dark arts and is a lot of fun to use. The Acolyte and Lair of the Warlock are extremely versatile in the early game and make running through the campaign a breeze. I relied upon Rip Blood and Marrow Shards for the vast majority of my time as an Acolyte, threw Bone Curse in for good measure here and there, and then mostly utilized the Bone Golem to tank for me when I needed. He came in super handy against longer boss battles where I needed to worry about mana regen in order to do more damage. You should also pay attention to what abilities scale off of. Most of the ones I utilized use damage over time and necrotic damage, so those are the stats I prioritize on my gear. I will also note that I didn't go in utilizing a guide, so I experimented with each ability as I unlocked it to see how I would enjoy it, and I encourage you all to do the same. You don't need a guide starting the game off, you can just go in and start having fun with it. And then with early leveling, you can go many different ways. Heavy minions, heavy curse, nailing things with Marrow Shards. There's really no wrong answer how to play. So just experiment. It's a lot of fun to do so. It's a lot of fun to find your own way. Using a guide almost ruins it a little bit. So again, highly suggest going away from that. And finally, I really didn't run into any difficulty until I faced the final boss of the campaign. Don't worry, no spoilers here. That said, after spending some time in the monoliths leveling up and getting my gear better, I came back and just wiped the floor with her. So that's all it takes. The early game use of this class was fantastic, especially when you start getting into those Warlock abilities like Chthonic Fissure, which you'll end up really using a lot later on too. It feels so good and it looks fantastic too on screen. So again, with that, early game is a blast. The character is strong, and let's see how that holds up going on. Alright, now let's get into the pros and cons of the Warlock class. The first pro I'd like to hit on is the AoE capability of the Warlock. She has so many skills to quickly wipe the screen of enemies. Chthonic Fissure is so satisfying to watch pop off, and when you add that with dots that spread, the loot just starts raining. The next one I'd like to touch on is single target damage. The Warlock is extremely efficient at burning down large bosses with different dots and curses, along with the Chthonic Fissure and Ghost Flame. They just melt. And finally, this build just scales off all the gear you find. Once you get a big dot enhancement, you will just see your damage go through the roof, and it is so fun to throw a new item on, run into a map, throw a Chthonic Fissure down, and just watch those numbers pile up. It is a blast. Now, we can't have too much good without any bad, otherwise this class would be just absolutely OP and nobody would play anything else. So let's go over some of the shortcomings of the Warlock. The first shortcoming I'd like to hit on is that this class is completely gear dependent, and what I mean by that is you won't reach your full potential without certain uniques, especially if you want to go with a low life, high ward build. Without them, you will at times feel extremely squishy, die by one hit shots a lot of times, and it would be extremely frustrating. The next con I'd like to touch on is mana. You have to learn how to manage your mana extremely well. There's so many boss fights that when they go prolonged, you start running low on mana, so you have to learn how to move around the map and kite just a little bit so your mana can rebuild.
It's not always a problem, but it has caused some deaths for me, so it is something to be cognizant of. Finally, I'd say another thing that has given me issues is that this class doesn't have high built-in elemental resistances. As a Warlock, there's so many things that give you necrotic resistances, but a lot of times when I'm getting one shot, it's because the other things are very low, so it's been difficult to build up. Again, that's just another gearing issue, but other classes have natural resistances to different things, and it's just one of these shortcomings for the Warlock. All right, next I'd like to touch on what I think are the best skills, go through 5 of them, that I found most helpful, not just for in-game or overall, but for even leveling up. So right off the bat, my favorite is this Chthonic Fissure. Basically opens up this huge rivet in the ground. All these souls come out and spit fire, flames everywhere. It's really cool to watch and does a ton of damage. My second would be Marrow Shards. Again, I don't use it really in in-game, but going like leveling up, I used it so much, I relied on it. It got me through so many boss fights. It does a lot of damage early on and was extremely helpful. Next, I want to give a shout out to Ghost Flame. Now, Ghost Flame is a really cool channeled ability. You basically, as it sounds, you're shooting flames out, ghost flames, into the AoE in front of you. I found some items early on that gave me ward when I channeled, and it made me super tanky. I used it for a long time until I hit a wall in the monoliths and the empowered monoliths, and once I did that, that's weird to see my damage going up. But once that happened, I made the switch to Chthonic Fissure, and I haven't looked back. But I do use Ghost Flame still a lot, especially when my health starts going down. It gets my my ward back up really, really quick. For number 4, I'll go Rip Blood early on, especially when you're using curses and stuff. A lot of things that you do damage to yourself. Rip Blood helps you manage your health really easily. Again, it's a big one for leveling up. Always pulling the health back to you. It's really awesome. And it's, again, extremely helpful. Keeps you alive, especially in early boss fights when you're waiting for mana or health potions to drop and they're not dropping. This one is extremely beneficial. And finally, another one, shout out from when I was leveling up, is the Bone Golem. I used this guy for a long time. I was really sad when I had to get rid of him because he was just so helpful. He kept me alive. He taunted everybody. It was just fantastic. Now, all these skills are great. I don't have a bad thing to say about any of the skills I have unlocked, but those 5 were my favorite and what I found most helpful through my playthrough as a Warlock. All right, now the big question. How does this game hold up in in-game? That's where everybody wants to get to when you play these action RPGs. You want to get to the in-game stuff. You want to start farming for gear. How does this one perform? I will put an asterisk on this. I do not have the gear I need to make my build as viable as I need. I've been farming for this chest piece for days now. It will not drop for me, but it will. It will sometime. I just gotta stay with it. But this build is extremely strong. It's extremely versatile. I think once you have all the pieces in place, you are going to be shredding high-end empowered monoliths, running through the arenas, running through the dungeons. I'd like to see how it compares to, or how it competes on the arena leaderboard. I have a feeling that in the right hands, this build can be absolutely disgusting. Again, I am super sold on this class, on this mastery. I'm going to play it to death. I am not going to switch to anything else until I get it completely geared up and see what it's fully capable of. And so once I do get there, I will bring it back. But at level 92 now, I believe I am. I'm running through empowered monoliths with no issues. I have issues sometimes, but that's because of my gear. I get one-shot deaths, not quite often, but occasionally, and it can be frustrating. And even the arena too, the higher tier arenas. Again, as a gear issue, it may be a skill, maybe. But this build's fun. It's fun. And then I guess we'll go right into my last bit. Is this a fun build? And yes, This is such a fun class to play. I've had a blast with it. It's visually stunning. There's so much stuff going on across the map. You have flames flying out. You have souls coming out. You can have ghosts walking around. You can have skeletons coming. It's a cool and fun build. I highly encourage everybody to give it a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you have any questions or want to talk about it, hit me up. Thank you for joining me, everybody. If you made it this far, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I'm just getting started on this YouTube and Twitch streaming journey. I'm having such a blast with it. Like I said, if you would be so kind as to show me some love and support, hit me a like, hit me a follow, please. Hit me up on Twitch especially. Come hang out with me while I play this amazing game. Come chat with me. We'll talk about the Warlock, whether you hate it, you don't like it, you love it. Either way, it's been a blast, and I can't wait to put more of these videos out. So everybody stay safe, have a great week, and see y'all next time.